So my talk's going to be a bit more high level this time. We talk about integrating Lightning into bitrefill, more on the front end implications, the user implications. I'm really a fan of the Lightning invoices. So as Lightning uses the Bolt 11 format, it's basically a simple extendable QR code ready protocol for requesting payments over Lightning. So here's an example of a decoded view of an invoice. There are many properties, and there are other tags you can add or extend with. I also like the idea that modifying a payment invoice, which contains the data, the amount, if you modify it, it invalidates due to the checksum. Sort of similar to modifying Bitcoin addresses or other addresses. I also like that you can sort of copy and paste Lightning invoices in one go. You double click, it copies the whole thing. In comparison to like Bitcoin Cash, they somehow for some reason use the prefix for the URI in their address format, so you can only copy the second half. But I guess wallets also support just that partial format. So if many people here don't know, the network and amount are actually human readable. You can actually see that in the beginning of the invoice. I think in Bitcoin's case it's BC, Litecoin would be LTC, and so on. So what I really like about this is that when you're paying an invoice, you almost never want to set the amount manually. You just copy the whole thing and paste it into your wallet. One of the biggest problems merchants have is users paying the wrong amount. Either they set a fiat amount or something else happens. So I think BitPay's solution to this was using BIP70. They don't show an address. They just don't allow a user to shoot them in the foot. But that comes with other issues, in my opinion. You can use a decoder with BitPay, but I think most of those benefits are also provided with Lightning invoices. You can also encode other data for fee rates that you want to accept. But I think the biggest problem is that users pay on-chain from exchanges, and either it gets delayed and sent after expiration, or they subtract the fee from the amount being sent. There's also the thing of using BIP21 with Lightning invoices. So in this case, BIP21 is backward compatible. It's a URI scheme. It's for to be encoded in QR codes. So most legacy Bitcoin wallets understand this format when scanned or clicked through a link. But the biggest problem I found is that you can't actually click on the whole URI. It wasn't really designed for that. I have users that end up copying the address but setting their own amount in fiat or something and paying the wrong amount. I don't think many wallets decode that. So my preference is moving Bitcoin on-chain payments for merchants to use Lightning invoices or something similar. I don't think that's popular with everyone, but for me, I feel like it would solve a lot of problems with user error. So yeah, that's one of the UX improvements with Lightning, in my opinion. Off-chain, you basically remove partial order failures. I mean, some wallets that you set the amount and you can set less, but I don't think if by default you show the amount and many will set it less. Some issues I've had with Lightning payments on the UX for users have been funds being sent after expiry on-chain. This usually does not happen off-chain, but in some cases it does happen, which causes some issues. With LND, for example, no notification is sent after.
So you're saying that like you have the expiry encoded in Lightning invoice.
Yes.
The expiry it's expired, and then they use the fallback address to actually pay for you on chain. Did I understand you correctly there?
I'm talking about more of on-chain payments mostly.
Oh, okay.
Before getting to the off-chain. So I was basically first talking about the issues we have with on-chain. So I probably should explain that first. I'll talk about fallback addresses after. So I think there's some issues with payments coming in after expiry, but most of those were initiated before the expiry in invoices. So I think there's a PR for that to actually settle invoices that are incoming after the expiry or get settled on chain through HTLC. So one of the issues I've had was dealing with support requests with users saying, "Oh, I paid your Lightning invoice, but and it actually came after the expiry. I didn't get a notification." I look up the invoice in LND, and it doesn't show it settled, and it doesn't show the updated amount. So many wallets actually provide the pre-image on the proof of payment. So I'm able to verify on my end the script that they actually ended up paying the invoice, and they have proof, even if it doesn't show up on my end. So when I was integrating Lightning payments on the front end, I'm not really a front end developer at all. I basically just modified the Bitcoin view to have the Lightning info. So it was basically really easy to integrate that flow. Initially, I used bits. That wasn't really a popular unit. It doesn't really matter what unit you use on the front end. Mostly, if the user scans the invoice, they'll see the units in their preferred configurable config. But we switched to and I redesigned to using Satoshis. So it's kind of blurry to see on this screen. But we switched to Satoshis and made the QR code bigger for users to scan. There was also actually some confusion with calling it Bitcoin Lightning. I guess I wasn't really thinking there naming wise. There's actually an altcoin called Bitcoin Lightning, so there were people thinking we were accepting this altcoin. So I renamed it just to be Lightning, and then the currency be just Bitcoin. Another idea is many merchants post their node cookie. I think BTC Pay does this, but we actually don't do this at all. But I don't think it's really necessary for merchants. The hub key is in the QR code in the invoice. Wallets should be able to parse this and be able to connect to a node. But for us, for example, we have channel minimums, so users may not actually be able to make a channel to us anyway. So it may not be the route we want users to go, unless they're opening a big channel to us. So we also support Litecoin Lightning, but we actually have it's a lot lower volume compared to Bitcoin Lightning. But there's no mobile wallets. But I believe in the future we'll just phase it out, and users will be able to pay us through the Litecoin Lightning network and swap to Bitcoin somehow if there's someone providing that service. I'm not sure if anyone's said this yet, but if you uppercase the Lightning invoices in QR codes, you actually get a better encoded format when you encode in QR codes. So what you have to do is to uppercase everything. You can even do it for the URI prefix. Most wallets actually now recognize it, I think. So wallets in use for us, we've seen a lot of users.
What do you mean with uppercase everything? Just like
Capitalize everything. Just capitalize the whole Lightning invoice when you encode it into a QR code. So that encodes it better in the QR code. So mobile wallets in use. From support requests, I've seen users use Zap, probably with the remote node, Eclair, Bitcoin Lightning wallet. So BLW is a Android-only Litecoin Lightning wallet, not Litecoin, Bitcoin Lightning wallet. They are more centralized as they handle routing on their end and pass that info to the user, but it seems to have a better user experience for now. Eclair is send only for now, but it may have receive functionality in the future. So I actually integrated Lightning deposits. So I'm sort of debating on what the best flow of going by this is. Right now, you can set the amount you want to deposit. There's also the idea of having a zero, like an invoice without an amount, and the user sets this invoice. But the user sets the amount. But you may run into cases where I may not have the capacity to receive the max payment, the limit, which is 0.04 Bitcoin. But I think there's one wallet that lets you set the amount, which is BLW. You can set the amount you want to send. So you can do things like send all if it's under the payment limit. So here's an example of one mobile Bitcoin wallet letting you set the amount in Satoshi. But ideally, this is used for tips or other things. I think you can also move to using something more interactive instead of invoices when we don't need to use that. So right now, actually, we have deposits live in production. You can deposit as low as 1 Satoshi up to the payment limit, just 0.04 Bitcoin. I think I said that. Lightning deposits also allows us to accept other coins without actually having to support them. You can actually submarine swap Litecoin and send us a deposit, which will credit in Bitcoin. I mean, why would you ever want to have Litecoin on our account anyway, in my opinion? For withdrawals, the UX, I think I've seen only one exchange allow withdrawals so far. So I think the preferred method is to just decode the invoice and show the memo, the amount, and when the invoice is created and how long it's going to be expired. So here's like a flow of me sending a deposit from Buddha into our account. So custodial wallets may be kind of a sore topic, but I think if we move users to using custodial wallets with Lightning, we can gradually move them to using something that they use on their own device or running their own node. I think you have to start somewhere and be realistic. It also has a good use case for faucets. You can sort of bring in users depositing small amounts into a custodial service and be able to pay for things with other services that may be 20 cents. So if there's a faucet service and a user actually makes like 20 cents, they can buy a refill from us in Thailand or somewhere where refills are that low. So I have actually implemented withdrawals, but there's currently issues with sending payments. I get stuck HTOCs. There isn't really good error codes right now for the sending API. The lifecycle of a payment is really not really clear right at the moment. They're working on an API to have a check payment status API where it will tell you what the status of the API, of the status of the payment is after the fact. You can check for HTOCs, stuck HTOCs in list channels, but there's not enough info from a documentation perspective or API. So what have we done to improve the Lightning user experience? In the case of routing failures, we are a service that offers higher value products. So users may be paying us and maybe seeing this more often than others. So what we actually do is we encode fallback addresses into invoices, Bitcoin addresses into Lightning invoices. Right now, LMD does not keep track of these addresses, so I have to keep track of them using my own infrastructure, which we already do since I support on-chain orders. BOW is one wallet on Android that supports this. I think it's only in the case where it has no channels, you'll be able to pay for the order and open the channel at the same time if the output is big enough. There's also been proposals of being able to open the channel and pay by pushing an amount, but I would need a better API on the node end to do that. So refunds. I think I talked a little bit about this yesterday. Users may not have incoming capacity after paying us. There's a flow where, due to the reserve, I cannot send a Lightning payment back. So I think Christian mentioned this earlier. You can sort of hold on to the HTLC, and I can wait until the order is successful, and then settle it or fail it if the order failed. It doesn't really apply for all failure cases. There are cases where I have orders that may be successful and fail, may seem successful and fail at a later point, or stuff like that. So there's like many different refund options, and I think for now I'll keep the chain option and maybe offer off-chain. So thanks. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, so just to understand, is there any method to handle stuck HTLCs or?
On-chain, yeah, is there any way to handle stuck HTLCs API? I think I'm not too clear on the other implementations, but with LND, not really. You can see it in list payments. List channels, you can see the stuck HTLCs. but you don't know if it's gonna settle or not, or if it's gonna. It doesn't tell you if it failed or if it succeeded. But I guess you can check list payments, but it may not show up in some cases. It's still kind of rough right now, but there's.
With the experience, it just needs to wait. However.
Yeah, but with the check payment API, we would have a way to check the life cycle, which is in a PR right now on the L&D repo. Thank you.